Your brother told us how you be all into reading and shit. Hey, that's some real good shit. Congratulations.
Did you just congratulate me for reading?
All right, we're back on the Lethal Introspection crew.
Woo!
Another episode. Following up our top 5 episode, now we're gonna be discussing one of our.
We're gonna talk about something a little more specific today. Something that people that have watched our top 5 will, no doubt, kind of already see coming.
Our most existential animated show, which we'll be covering in detail now, Psychopaths by Gen Urubachi. I forgot. But anyways, he's also done Fate Zero and Phantom, Requiem for the Phantom, which I know a lot of people probably haven't seen, which is, I think it's pretty good.
語り明かすのも楽しそうだが、あいにく今僕は他の要件で忙しい。
知ったことか。この場で殺してやる。
刑事の言葉とは思えない。
お前に黒幕はいない。他のザクはお前に操られているだけだ。事件の真相はお前を殺した後でゆっくり調べればいい。
以前会った時、死にかけの君にとどめを刺すこともできたんだ。見逃してあげた恩義を感じてくれないのか。
せいぜい後悔することだな。
Psychopaths. It's a pretty dope show. It's a mixture between what would you say? I think it's a mixture between like Blade Runner,
Minority Report.
Report. That's definitely true.
That's the first thing that comes into my
I'd
mind.
say those two. Any other?
It almost made me want to wish that they had like some sort of Tom Cruise-esque looking anime character on there, just running through, doing things in Psychopaths, just because there was.
Wasn't that Kogami? No?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It wasn't Tom
pretty
Cruise
much
looking
was.
though. You know?
Yeah, it wasn't Tom
The
Cruise
hair,
looking.
sort of.
Yeah. But yeah, so you guys brought me into this show. I had heard little whispers about it as time went along, but for the most part, I had never fully gotten into the strata of my interests. And you guys made a big deal about me making sure to watch it, so I take these guys' opinion very seriously. I take these guys' opinion very seriously, so I hunkered down, and a day and a half later, I was...
It's a show I really advocated. I don't think you were into it at first, too.
No.
I had to kind of advocate for this show, which I don't know why, because it hooked me on the first watch of it. The first episode, I was like, oh, this is going to be good, because I could tell, like, the opening scene starts out with the bad guy, Shogo Makishima, quoting Pascal.
I'll be a little honest in saying that I did watch the show like for the first 3 episodes, maybe like a couple years prior to you mentioning it again. But at that time, those 3 episodes had not sold me. And that's something that's a disclaimer that might be useful to whoever might be listening right now that hasn't seen the shows.
Just keep watching.
It's the fact that it does just get better and better. It's such a compounding interest that it'll just take you away like a tidal wave. Probably by episode 6, I would say.
The environment, I'm usually really interested in futuristic, dystopic environments like what is set up in Psychopaths. So I guess, because I was really into, I think another show that would be a big influence for Psychopaths is Ghost in the Shell. So I don't know if you guys have seen Ghost in the Shell.
I have not, no.
That's another one that deals with a lot of similar things, minus the civil system, but similar dystopic future scenario where technology is everything and
it's more like
all type
a
of
Blade
things.
Runner
type
of like, because in Ghost in the Shell, it's always about the question that they always tackle is, what does it mean to be human? You know, like when we get to a point where we can build ourselves new bodies and put our consciousness in it, like at the end of it, what does it mean to be human? Is human the body you live in? Is it your thoughts, your emotions?
And if you can create an algorithm for your consciousness, what exactly does that mean about the ability to recreate and reproduce your consciousness? What exactly is the uniqueness of yourself?
Right.
If you are able to be quantifiable.
This is deep.
Anyways, I
And
think
that's not
we'll
even
have
the
to-
show we're talking
I
about.
know. I think we'll have to cover that show before we digress on
The
a
whole
a subsequent episode.
Right.
But that was a big influence for this one because you see
the
elements
environment,
in.
though.
No, also the whole transferring your mind into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
But-
there was a character in Psychopaths that had completely artificial parts, and he had lived for a
Spoilers
really long
ahead,
time.
by the way. This discussion is also, once again, full of spoilers.
Well, we always it's
Yeah.
all spoiled.
Listen, I never want to presuppose that this is going to be like someone's like seasoned in what we do. So please, spoilers
right,
ahead.
true.
All right, so
Cool.
I think we should lay out the structure. We'll
Right.
just talk about the environment first, as you mentioned. More of like the sort of the human landscape, I would say, like the social environment that kind of a system was bred in. And then we'll probably move into the characters you mentioned, and then the actual system. We'll finish with actually what the Sybil system is and what we actually all think about it, and if that's even something that is possible, and even if it is possible, does that mean we should implement it? What are the repercussions for that? And so
I like that structure. I like
I
it.
think we'll use that as a guideline.
Yeah, that's a good primer.
But definitely feel free to bring up some stuff that you want to bring up, especially as a lethal discussion.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Every thought
if
is
you have
killing.
any killer thoughts,
Every thought kills.
share them. Yeah, so Psychopaths is set up in that environment, futuristic environment, in which the main thing is society, super advanced technologically, but they live under this kind of robo-judge and this all-encompassing system called the Sybil system, which determines where you go to school, what kind of job you get into, and then also if you live or die,
there's
basically.
no government. Do you notice that? It is the government. Like, the reason I bring it up is because when I was watching Psychopaths, I think Psychopaths definitely played a huge role in the company that I'm building. Because, you know, subliminally or not, I never realized until you brought it up that the world of Psychopaths doesn't have a government. The government is an artificial intelligence, and we'll get into like the Sybil system and what it is, but at the core of it, it was just a system that got rid of like politicians and like, you know, these figures of state or head of states, and then just kind of like enabled humanity to live life in the happiest sense, right? Because the common question in Psychopaths is like a life where you don't struggle, you don't like have to like worry too much about if you're making the right career path, if you're, you know, if you're going to be safe environmentally, like, you know, there's no robberies and stuff like that. Is a world where you don't struggle worth living in, you know? Like if there's no challenges, if it's just like a paradise in a sense, like quote unquote paradise, is that something that we would all want to exist in? A paradise created by an artificial intelligence that definitely like knows your every need, caters your reality towards you and whatever you want to do. So that's, at least to my understanding, what the environment and kind of the premise is in the senses of Psychopaths.
I took the Sybil system's philosophy as one of negative utilitarianism, which essentially boils down to the decrease in suffering, as opposed to utilitarianism, which is the increase in happiness. And to my mind, the Sybil system doesn't necessarily care so much about the satisfaction and happiness of its citizens, so much as the lack of suffering that could potentially befall the citizenry. It doesn't want any negative aspects of life to occur anymore. So it takes away criminality. It takes away any
physical suffering.
any sort of physical suffering. Correct, and that's why I'm saying that it decreases. It's negatively utilitarian because it decreases suffering, but it does not go out of its way to increase any sort of happiness, because you still have stresses and you still have issues that could potentially lead you to become an unhappy person, but you're not suffering. So all of your ennui and all of your unhappiness is entirely psychological.
I think the cool thing is that in Psychopaths, the society accepts the system so much, and it's it's kind of built into it, because if you don't accept the system, you can be destroyed by it, you know? It kind of
Or ostracized at the very least.
ostracized. But I mean, the worst thing that happens is you're labeled in Psychopaths. The whole show is that you get this psychopath score, and this will basically, if you have a low score, you'll be able to get into best careers, best schools. You have a easy, fulfilling life, I suppose, by those standards. But if your psychopath gets too high, you can be executed on the spot. So already, people, even if they might be critical of the system, they don't want to be too openly critical, because what if that affects their hue? What if that affects their score? And then later, spoiler right here, is we find out that the Sybil system isn't entirely AI. It's a hive mind of abnormal individuals who judge these things. You could probably, if you spoke out about the negative aspects of the system, be artificially, your score just shoot up, perhaps. It's never like covered explicitly, but this could probably happen.
Well, I would imagine that since it's all somatic, that what the questioning of the system, it wouldn't necessarily be a retaliation from the system from a philosophical angle. It would be entirely somatic, because you'd start feeling dissonance to the reality that you live in, and that would begin causing you to grow in stress levels. Your cortisol levels will go up, because everything would feel like a pantomime and a fake, right?
This is so weird.
And as it would go on, your stress level would continue to go up, and you would begin to dehumanize and devalue the things you see around you in the same way that Shogo Makishima does.
Perhaps.
And because of that, you start to, with the dehumanization aspect, your criminal latency would then begin to palpitate higher and higher.
Perhaps.
But
I think
you brought
even
up something interesting though, which segues into exactly kind of the next section, where you said it's a hive mind. And the reason why they didn't want to harm Makishima was because they wanted to incorporate his brain into it. See, the way I kind of perceive it is that if there is somebody who's like so different from the system will try to incorporate them into the way it processes information, right? So if there's somebody who doesn't fit the parameters that have already been set, and they have demonstrated that they have a unique perspective that could add value to it,
And they're a dangerous aberration if left to their own devices.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And so I think that that's why they didn't like want to kill him. You know, the point was always to capture Makishima. You know, because like there was a woman, the head woman of that whole like the police division wanted him to be captured, not to be killed. You know, because he's an asset in the sense that when you have such a smart criminal in a sense, because his whole thing was like, how do you know, I want you to live a real life. I don't want you to live this fantasy in which like everything is perfect. I want you to actually practice the things that you feel and believe, you know?
Yeah, I think this will be a good segue to move to the characters in this show. So our main bad guy is Shogo Makishima, as Polycap just brought up. And yeah, like you said, his philosophy in that show is that he wants to see if humans will act morally if they're not forced to, right?
He doesn't
if
believe
they have the freedom.
Yeah, he doesn't believe that humans have value
to do.
Yeah, they don't have value unless they're tested continuously.
Right.
That is true.
I think
I don't know if that's true, but
that's definitely my favorite character in that show, just because he just makes a lot of good points about the system, and just he seems like the only real person in that like he's characterized to a sense. Of course, he's like super strong, he's always calm, and all these things that you probably wouldn't expect from a person. But at the same time, it seems like he looks at the system objectively and is like, this is absurd, right?
He's a man out of time. He just seems like the kind of person that was born in the wrong century and in the wrong society. Because if Shogo Makishima would have been born in the 21st century, I believe that he would have had the capacity to withhold all of those negative aspects and just go on about his day, because there would be no dissonance to him in relation to the kind of life that we live.
Do you think so? Although I also get this sense that I always talked about this show in relation to the show Hannibal, and I felt there was a lot of parallels between Hannibal the psychopath, and Shogo Makishima, because both those characters kind of did things to toy with people.
Do you think Hannibal would actually have a criminal latency, though? I don't think he would be asymptotic.
Yeah. I think he'd be asymptotic too. He could be able to control it because it's all about your stress level and this and that.
Yeah, and he was,
that's what psychopaths, they don't think what they're doing is wrong, so they can do it with calmness and so like that kind of
like
lack of care,
almost.
That lack of care about other people's lives, is a thing that made me, okay, Makishima can look at the system objectively and be like, okay, I want to see what humans would do, if they weren't just being fake to fit into this society. However, at the same time, you have to look at the way he kind of manipulated people, especially that supercharged scene, which is my favorite scene, where he kills Akane's best friend in front of her, slowly slits her throat, and even hands her the shotgun, and is like, here, go ahead, kill, like, stop me, and she's just like, I can't, like, she literally does not want to take justice into her own hands.
残念だ。とても残念だよ。常森茜監視官。君は僕を失望させた。だから罰を与えなくてはならない。
やめて、お願い。
己の無力さを後悔し絶望するがいい。
犯罪係数0、執行対象ではありません。トリガーをロックします。
Right?
I'm gonna have to disagree with you in the sense that you said that Shogo looks at the system from an objective standpoint. I think what causes him to be such a palpitating and powerful character is that he looks at it from such a subjective standpoint, because he wants to be a subject always. He loves the game, as he says, when he was offered the opportunity to become an objective godlike ruler and look down upon everyone at the same time. He wants to be a player, and he wants to continue in the game as long as he can. He just dislikes the arbitrariness and the capriciousness of the rule setter of the game, because he wants the world where everybody is always continuously being the arbiter of each other's movements, as opposed to having some, God on high telling you that's right, that's not right, that's right, that's not right.
Which makes me feel like he's even more of a psychopath, because he's maximizing his own, like he's never thinking about anybody else. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, sure, he wants to see what people do, but for his own entertainment.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, ultimate subjectivity, correct, yeah.
So,
but if that's the definition of that, I think we're all psychopaths then.
And we are.
We're just good at hiding it.
Psychopathy is a spectrum, yeah.
No, in the sense that he literally doesn't, like, can you slit someone's throat just to see if the friend would save him? Like that seems ridiculously psychopathic.
Now,
and if you do identify with that, well,
I'm not going to say I identify with that, but there's this thing known as hindsight bias.
We most certainly aren't going to say.
Because in a sense, I can sit here and say that, I wouldn't do that, or I would do that.
There would be a good reason to
you put me in a situation where I need to do that.
Was there a situation in which you ever need to kill?
Well, to him, he did not need to do that. He did, in a sense. If she wasn't going to stop him, then I'm going to practice my will.
This? It's like you want to manipulate others for your own gratitude. He had no reason to kill that girl. He had no reason to. She was not even a part of it. It was just to mess with this other girl.
She wasn't a part of it. She was a citizen and a co-conspirator and perpetuator of the system that he hates. So what exactly is it about her that makes her so innocent? Her incomplicitness, her ignorance, her lack of.
I'm surprised that Jose's the one.
That's kind of messed up, dude.
We can't treat humans as objects, okay?
I know, right?
Well, I mean, you can't give me a straight answer. All you can do is tell me that I'm messed up, and that's not a productive answer. I'm looking at it from Shogo's perspective, and what keeps him so being.
So I mean, on the basis of the whole psychopath thing, it's just essentially, if we're going to talk about psychopaths,
Okay.
who, I mean, you murder people for senseless reasons. It's like only for your own gratitude. If it's like you don't like something, that's not a reason to murder somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Then what's a good reason to murder someone?
though.
We're always gonna be. You'd have to talk about self-defense, things
But
like that.
that's we're masking it. To
You
be
know?
honest with you, America destroys other countries not because of self-defense or anything like that. We're the strongest people on the planet. This country
Self-defense.
itself. Self-defense against who? There's
See, there you
literally
go.
like-
Others who might maximize their potential against you.
Which is
You know
why
what
I
I'm
believe
saying?
Shogo did
We
nothing
killed
wrong
them
because he
first.
he preemptively took down every single person that could potentially.
That makes
Yeah.
everybody a target then.
Correct.
So that's silly.
I think,
so that's the definition of being a psychopath. You know?
I also understand it as I choose to look at it this way. In this whole psychopath
And
or
also
not.
putting your emotions, like being able to be like, okay, am I going to hurt this person's feelings? You know, you can't take into account the empathy that this character has. Like this is her best friend. You're gonna kill her best friend in front of you.
That's wrong.
You know what
See,
I'm saying?
because empathy is exactly what he was exercising, because he gave her a shotgun and he said if Shogo were Akane, Shogo would have killed Shogo. Yet, because of the fact that he
She
employed
relies so much on the system.
yeah, because of the fact that he employed that, he did not have sympathy for Akane, but he allowed her to make her own decision. He became Akane.
That wasn't for her to like the empathy, like here, give me here's a shotgun, kill me. It was because he knew she couldn't, and he was just torturing her.
But then
know?
but then you have to presuppose that
That was
Shogo
a little
somehow.
torture.
That's
His
how
fault,
you
though.
somehow presuppose that Shogo
Is
knows
it
the
his
future.
fault? I
It's
think I
his
might have
fault
to
for
make a
grabbing
video just
somebody and
like
slitting her
Makishima
throat.
did.
Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Fuck all of y'all, if it ain't one thing, it's another.
Maybe a rap to go with it, because I'm like, look.
I've yet to be completely.
I don't know about that, guys, but
Then I'm really glad we're having this conversation because we need to clarify some things for sure.
I think that's definitely some psychopathic tendencies.
I think it's a
That
spectrum.
that
as you
whole
said.
thing.
Yep.
That
Psychopathy
whole-
is a spectrum. You can't just give somebody one label and then presuppose that every single aspect of that,
That
label
scenario,
will.
you're really gonna justify that scenario?
What's there to
But
ju-
he gave her.
What's there to
he gave
justify?
her
He
the-
was
the
willing to die.
Tools to stop
Yeah.
him.
Why
Why
do you
do
not
that?
do it in the first place? That's silly.
Why do you not do what in the first place?
Why kill that
Well,
girl
yeah,
in the
what-
first place?
He didn't kill her in the first place. He waited until Akane gave him no other recourse other than to kill
No
her.
other recourse.
Yeah.
Let her go. There's
No.
always that option.
No,
he had
you
no
have a
option.
point- you
have
It
a
was
point
her
to
or him.
make.
Yeah, because that's the only way to be able to showcase the lesson that he wants to teach.
No, there's always a different way. That wasn't the only way to showcase.
I feel like if we're in
it.
an
Come on.
anime, Kevin would definitely be
I don't-
the shonen kid.
I don't really see
That's
exactly.
the
Naruto.
only way. I have to kill this girl to make my point. That's the silliest thing ever.
It isn't silly because the show actually showcases that is exactly right, because that action continuously traumatizes Akane over and over again until the point that she starts having those weird dreams and hallucinations. And although she doesn't actually end up siding with the Shogo, she uses that situation and scenario as a catalyst for her to finally be able to grow and have a synthesis with the civil system, wherein she understands that the civil system is a necessary evil.
He could have still made his point and let her go. That's the thing. He could have, because look, she was not going to use that shotgun. We've relocated to the mausoleum, or I mean,
It's the mausoleum, and every
Institute.
museum is the mausoleum of old ideas.
That's
that really
true.
is what it is.
That's true.
Yeah.
True. I agree.
Of art, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the mausoleum of ideas, because like these are all old conceptualizations that once were contemporary, but now have gone and been relic to time. Now they're
Right.
honored because of their oldness.
Yeah. They were literally about to cut my head off about this psychopathic Makishima.
We were about to teach
question.
a lesson.
I think But we did all agree that he is a psychopath.
He is most certainly a psychopath. I know we're all kind of we're all playing around, you know, trying to make it up, make it seem like it isn't, trying to play devil's advocate. But I can totally understand.
I can see how you can think his actions might be justified.
Shogo Makishima's actions aren't even necessally justified.
Not justified.
They're
but
just they're relatable. The
Relatable?
veracity, the veracity of what he's trying to do, the truthfulness
Understandable.
behind his action is completely understandable to me, right? But
I just don't think
I've never been had the opportunity to live in a society where I can genuinely say that these people are drones, and I'm thinking genuinely, right? Because we all live in a bit of a synthesis between each one. Like we're all complicit in the society that we live in, but at the same time, because we don't have some sort of weird Sybil system thing touching you on the shoulder being like, I feel like your stress level's a bit up today. Like we can actually like expound on our ideas and find the stress points in our society. That's one of the shortcomings I find of the Sybil system, as I think you mentioned it, is the fact that it's inherently self-flawed because it doesn't allow for actual reformation. Yeah, it doesn't allow for reformation because you have to already presuppose that the system is perfect, because if it isn't perfect, then people aren't going to accept it. And then at that point, it's just kind of like...
It's literally a God thing. But anyways, I think I did want to save that dissertation on the whole civil system till the end here, especially since I think Polycap will really enjoy that. So going through should we go through the Kogame character, the foil to Makishima?
There was a question you asked her in the car. We were like lifting back, and you were like something about like the way I understood it was something about people being drones by the fact that if you were given everything, like if you live in a reality where, you know, it is catered to you, everything is given to you, like you don't struggle, you don't have to think too much, you just kind of exist in the same way animals do in a certain sense, that kind of turns you into a drone of a sense in which you don't really like react out of your own inclinations, your own beliefs, your own like desires. You just kind of, you know, you go with the script that you're given. It turns you into this automated, autonomous kind of object of reality.
It turns you into a herd animal.
Does it?
Does it not?
I don't think so, because like it depends on the individual, but I think to a large like point, like that's a lot of what we have in our society. We don't have a lot of the like we don't get challenged with the idea of like, am I going to survive the next day? You know what I'm saying? Those aren't our problems. We have really existential problems of like, does this person like me? Or like, and those are the same problems that the people in Psychopaths deal with. You realize that that environment, it's like there's not a lot of crime that goes on. So they're dealing with these everyday normal problems of like, oh, which school am I gonna get into? You can kind of see the conversations that Akane is having with her friends in the beginning of the show, and they're having all these normal conversations that you see everybody have, and they're dealing with normal things. However, it's like, I mean, aren't we always building towards like a society, or we want a society where people don't do like there's not, you're not faced with survival every day, you have to go out for yourself, and we built this kind of thing, right?
That is the paradox of Psychopaths as a whole, and what makes it so interesting when we're talking about it right now is because it is a favorable future depending on how you're looking at it, right? Because if you're the kind of person that thinks that crime should be low, right, and everybody should be able to live life in safety above everything else, then the Psychopaths universe is a utopia. There is no dystopia. There's no dystopic aspect about it until an aberration such as Shogo Makishima appears.
I guess directly talking about, do they become drones? Like drones in what sense? Like maximizing their own like lifestyle without thinking about the the whole really survival aspect, because they're living in this bubble of protection, right?
The way that brings the video that we actually watched today. Jerry. So we watched a video with Wisecrack.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah, Rick and Morty. It was a Wisecrack video of them kind of questioning whether, it's good to be a Jerry or a Rick, right? And I think they quoted Dostoevsky, and they were like, he mentioned something about you guys probably can requote him, but
it's
it was
better to be a wise man than being a fool in a fool's.
A wise man and being happy.
Yeah,
than to be a fool.
Than a fool
and happy in a fool's paradise.
yeah,
Something
like a
that.
wise man who wasn't like happy, but a fool who's happy in his own paradise.
Better to be wise and miserable than a fool in a
Venice.
paradise. Yeah.
So for me, it was like I relate more to being. I'd rather be wise and miserable than be a fool in like a fantasy world. You know, like I'd rather know things about how the world actually is than be in this like falsified fantasy of like everything is catered to me, everything is perfect, because that's to me in a sense not sustainable as much. You know. And to bring it back to what you were bringing on about how society is moving towards that, I think heaven, the concept of heaven, at least in Christianity, to my understanding, is that it is this place where there's this authority figure, and he has it all kind of figured out, and you just come there, you live there happy ever after. You just kind of have to like worship him forever.
Maybe that's what that society is, because like Sybil is God, and it decides everything for everybody. You know, like there's no. And they believe in it, and they believe in all of its judgments. It's like a present God, you know.
Yeah. It's like they're literally living in the city of God already,
Right.
and with God in downtown.
You know.
You could go to the office of God. And,
Yeah, and all of the little
I like to file a complaint.
Yeah.
He's like, nope.
Yeah, and all of the little like happy looking like drone things, you know, are pretty much like they're his cherubs and like angels, just kind of keeping tabs on everybody else.
It is true. I don't know if it's totally expedient when you're talking about. I think it's almost hubris to feel like, okay, I'd rather know stuff and be unhappy, because what about the stuff that you don't know that you don't know? You know what I'm saying? There's always more. You know, when are you going to draw the line? Are you actively looking for something to be unhappy about in your environment? Is that the only way that you can exist? Is like, okay, if we get rid of all your worries, you're going to be like, but what about the air? It could be cleaner. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're trying to get to a point where you're almost looking for something to not like, and then calling it like, oh, it's just because I am the one who can notice this, and I'm so smart that I notice all this stuff, you know? And I don't know if it's totally expedient to put yourself in this kind of bind, because you can always say, okay, these people are just ignoring all this stuff, but what about all the stuff that you might be ignoring that you're not even cognizant of, you know?
If we're gonna bring it back to Dostoevsky, to agree with your point, I've been reading Notes from Underground, and a passage from that book talks about the fact that human nature has a very high tendency of rejecting utopia even when it's right in front of them. Because I'm going to paraphrase here, but he pretty much mentions the fact that if humans were given the opportunity to live in a place where all they had to deal with is their own happiness, and all they had to do was eat cake every single day, and then just worry about the continuation of world history, they would, within a couple weeks, pretty much begin destroying and breaking things down just for one new interesting thing to happen. We are not suited for utopian comforts because our biology is made for the variance, a variable and a variant environment. We're not made for static pleasure. And as a result of that, our hedonic treadmill automatically keeps us away from those kind of, complacencies. We can never allow ourselves to truly understand what it means to be happy. I believe that it was Wolfgang Goethe who mentioned the fact that, and this is a man who was unbelievably successful in his lifetime. He said that he did not feel that he ever had a moment of happiness longer than 30 minutes in all of his life. Because a successful person is never genuinely happy. They're always continuously striving for another thing. That's
such a trap.
I finished the video for our crew yesterday night, and already the good feeling of that completion has already washed away from me, and now I'm wondering and stressing out about the next video that we got to figure out.
Right.
And I feel great about that because there is always something to be done.
At least you look at it from an overarching thing. It's
Right.
like, at least you're not bored, right?
Right, yeah.
But there's, I think, people who get into the whole, since they always find something negative in their environment to prop up and be like, this is the reason I can't be happy. And it's like this thing that'll never be solved. And you're always looking for a negative kind of thing. Is like, oh, everybody doesn't know this. I can imagine a society in the beginning, like the Neolithic period, where everybody's like trying to survive all the saber-toothed tiger attacks.
Yeah, right.
And some great man comes by and creates a whole system and like gets rid of all these saber-toothed tigers in the valley, and everybody's safe now, and we can finally prosper and not have to worry about this. And there's still people like, okay, but what about these fucking flies in my food? I'm still not happy. What the, are you serious? Like, you can't just like take a moment and appreciate. It's like, if you're always gonna get into that bind, then
but the striving is half of the battle. So because of that, how exactly is it that you can even
at least
try
strive,
to question
like, be like, okay, we can continue make it better.
Yeah.
But not be like, let me find something new to complain about.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
just for
to
complaining's
complain.
sake.
Yeah,
Okay. That I see. That I understand.
See, I
yeah.
agree with that,
Just
though.
the hater.
Just
the hate.
hate, you know.
Just the player haters ball.
As I was saying, I feel like intellectuals tend to kind of get in that hubris of like, I see this negative thing and nobody else does. You know what I'm saying? And it might be totally existential and irrelevant to the point. It's not necessary for your happiness, and people are getting along and not, completely fine with it. And it's like, I'm gonna complain about this thing because I know about it and all this stuff,
okay.
And I'm not gonna do anything about it, but I know about it and I'm gonna complain about it because I'm so smart.
And that's the issue,
Okay.
and that's what I think is like I completely agree with you in the terms that there is a whole ton of arrogance and hubris in terms of that, but you could actually veil that personally and subjectively as a humility angle, where like everybody is just so arrogant about the society that we live in because everything's going so well, right? It's like, but I at least have the humility to look at the cracks in the middle and see the issues that are actually jutting out from the inside out.
And the point I make about that is, what's the point?
The point is to make it better.
If you're not going to make it better, if you're only going to do it to complain about it, then
What is the point?
what, like, are you just trying to be miserable to be miserable? You know what I'm saying?
How
It's
did
kind
you
of like the
get
person who's like, well, we're just this tiny rock in the middle of space, so I can't be happy because we can't be meaningful because we're so small in the gap. It's like, do you know how many stars there are? Like, okay, guy, like, what is that? What does that
have
matter
to do with
anything?
I think,
and I feel like some people make those arguments of just like, well, humanity is insignificant. Why do you think? Why are you so happy? We don't even matter. It's so small.
See, that's the thing which I always disagree with, though, because to me, I have 2 points to make, because the first one is about balance. Like, both your perspectives are valid in the sense that, I still want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled. I want to enjoy the things that I have in the present and be like, yeah, I came this far. Humanity has come this far. We're glad for that, But never to be too complacent with where we are, understanding that we can always do more, but we should still appreciate where we are. It's a sense of awareness that I think more people should be accustomed to. And the kind of example you gave where somebody's like, oh, humanity's on this one rock and it's in the middle of space, in the middle of nowhere, and it means nothing. To me, that's very limited. I come from the same kind of understanding of the facts, but I also see it as, oh, since we're just starting here, this is just a starting point. We can expand and we can go to other places.
Yeah, at least you can look at it like that. It's
There's
like,
an
wow, there's a
adventure.
whole so much more to
Do.
see and do.
Exactly.
Whether if it was like, well, here's this planet and another planet, that's the extent of the universe. That kind of be even worse, I think. But also, it's a fact that people, I think it's easy to look at what's going wrong, but what about all the shit that's been going right? You know, like, I feel like that's understatement in like all the miracles of what goes on every day for all this to just work. You know,
And
like
to bring
all
it-
these million people to live together and just be able to get along and not destroy every day. You should probably be like, wow, we haven't completely nuclear genocided ourselves.
You make a very, very great point, and to wrap this all back into psychopaths, that
Yeah.
is exactly the decision that Akane makes at the very end, because she's actually able to see how the devil lies in the details of the utility of the civil system, right? It's like, it isn't so much that the civil system is created by all of these criminals that now have ascended to godhood. It's much more in that she sees the fact that although the entire construct is muddy, there are still a lot of positive aspects to it, as you mentioned, that one can't completely just entirely just separate from. It's like, you can't be like,
It's been working.
It's what Jordan
It could be
Peterson.
better,
Yeah,
but-
it's what Jordan Peterson always mentions about the duality of the patriarchy, wherein it's the tyrannical dictator, right? That makes you have to goose step toward a certain future, but it's also the loving father that wants to foster you to be able to grow towards something that actually can withstand that future.
True.
So that kind of dichotomy is the kind of thing that Akane comes to understand and accept, because the civil system is reprehensible. Like, there's no question about the fact that there is some reprehensibility to the system, but
I disagree.
you don't think there's some
All
reprehensibility?
right, we'll save it for the
Okay,
the
that's
system.
fine. That's fine. Yeah. We got a
I think
utopian
this is
here,
a
so
good segue to
I've always been.
talk about more characters.
Right.
Because I thought the characters were interesting.
Totally.
Do we want to do Akane or Kogami?
We could do both. I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Leader. Which one do you want to start
Kogami. How
Okay.
about that?
Shinya.
He's the foil, I think, to
Shogo.
Makshima's character.
at least the one who
And
thinks.
I thought his character was a bit one-dimensional in the sense that he grows with he already can identify with Shogo Makishima. That's
You're
why
right.
he's a latent criminal, right? He can see why, you know, and he has that professor friend who also has those ideas and
Correct, yeah.
criticizes the system. However, I felt like he was too hell-bent in the whole revenge thing. Like, I felt like, okay, he wanted to punish Shogo Makishima, but he didn't have much past that. I was like, okay, what kind of, was he a realistic character? Is this what you can expect? I thought from maybe a cop who's in this system who doesn't kind of, I guess that's a lot of cops might feel like, okay, the system is messed up, but look, I'm just gonna do my best within the system.
to
And
change the system, make it make the most.
I
out
don't
of
think
it,
he even tried. Like, I don't think his intention was even to try to change it. He
Change it
just
all.
really wanted to catch Makishima.
Just one
and
guy,
that's,
yeah.
That's what he was obsessed about. And once he did that, he kind of just disappeared from the record. And I thought, wow, I didn't see where this character, how he was, like, if he was a lens to put yourself in, what was the growth that Kogami?
I think if anything, he's supposed to showcase the downfalls of having such a one-sided outlook into any one dimension. Because you're totally right, it does make him feel a bit one note in the sense that every single one of his actions was entirely predicated on the moves of Shogo, right? And it wasn't until he managed to capture Shogo and do with him as he will, you know, that he was finally satisfied and he disappeared away from the story.
You know what he was?
But I think that was actually more of like that was like the most human aspect of the situation, because each one of us can become unbelievably hypersensitive to one ideal and just continue on in that one way. And that's the kind of thing that he was supposed to showcase. Is like, it was more like a Batman-esque kind of desire for justice, or like a Punisher, the Punisher kind of, Punisher-esque kind of one-dimensional aspect of justice. It's like, he already understood that the system wasn't going to punish Shogo in the conventional way. So because of that, he felt that the system was completely inadequate to be able to output the accurate punishment for the crime.
I guess he was interesting in that way in which he was a latent criminal ready to just like put it all on the line.
Right,
just, like,
correct, yeah.
For his sense of justice. And he got into it because he had a sense of justice. He was not always a latent criminal.
Mm-hmm.
It was only
he was
because
a detective, yeah.
he lost faith in the system. So he became, it's almost like he chose to become a latent criminal because he felt like he could exact justice in a better way.
Possibly.
And I think maybe that's why Makishima enjoyed him, because he was like, Makishima dealt with criminals, but this was someone who understood his thought process but still believed in kind of like justice. I
Right,
guess.
he didn't fall into animalistic tendencies like all of the other like students of Makishima, because that's one of the things that Makishima always mentioned, or at least he mentioned when it came to that to the girl that does the artistry, that like does like the weird like human sculptures, is that she kind of became like an animal. Like she just enjoyed the viscerality of killing people so much that it kind of turned Shogo off to what she was doing, right? all the while, Shinya's obsession and the kind of obsession that led to his criminal latency was more of a, once again, a humanistic kind of desire.
It's like the will of
it's the desire for an abstraction, for justice, as opposed to the desire for desirability. Like the artist or that guy or the cyborg guy that does the hunting, right? Because that was just for them. That was just for them.
Like,
Shinya
just
wanted it
psychopathic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I
see we're adding dimensions as we speak.
Bringing it back to Hannibal, I realized how Will like Kogame was, because he really just wanted to catch Hannibal in that show.
Yeah,
that's funny, and but he could relate, you know. So that's interesting. Also, there's a training day kind of thing going on with Akane and Kogame, because he's just that like cop who's just off the rails, who's ready to kill everybody, even if they're innocent, right? Or not innocent, but like there was that girl in the first episode who like she got taken hostage, and because she got taken hostage, her psychopath goes up to the point where she can be executed. And Akane's like, no.
Yeah.
I felt like he was a version of Akane that had given up on the system, you know, because to him, he was like, because she was always like, okay, I can work with it, I can still use it to, you know, even at the end of the show, she was just like, okay, you know, I understand that the system isn't perfect, but I can still work with it and the parameters that it has towards creating a better future. He had completely given up. He was essentially what Makishima was looking for to turn Akane into, in the sense that had she picked up the shotgun and shot him, then she would have been in the same situation as he was in. So I think he was her in the reality, in the sense that that's why Makishima really appreciated him, because he did what he desired to do. He was like, okay, I'm working from my own definition of what justice is.
He exercised his will. He was a valuable human, and that's exactly what Shogo always mentions, is like no human is valuable unless they're genuinely exercising their will. What do you guys think about how the civil system goes about deciding what exactly is a criminal?
Should we hit Akane before?
Right. We should.
Before we just get to the system.
That's true. Okay,
I
so
thought Akane
the
was
other main
really
character,
cool.
Akane,
Not really cool. She frustrated me a lot, obviously, but because she would never, like, she had this thing where it was clear that she had doubts about the system, and I could never understand how, like, she had doubts about the system, but her psychopaths remained clear. And I remember I told you this once when I was thinking about psychopaths, where I felt like if you're going to look at the dichotomy between Akane and Makishima, Makishima is like a god in that show, in the sense that he is the end all and be all of what he wants to do, right? He does whatever, and he thinks he is justice, or whatever he believes is right.
He just thinks that he's a normal person. That's his folly.
Well, at least let me finish my point here.
Ahead.
So as far as he like no matter what he thinks about himself, you can kind of look at his character in the sense that when the civil system tries to judge him, he can't be judged.
Right.
He's almost like a god. What he's doing is right at that moment because he decided it. And especially when you see him killing Akane's friend, he's like, well, I think this is right, like you were saying. And his psychopath actually goes lower and lower as he fulfills his
It got to 0,
need.
so he wasn't even there.
Right. It was ridiculous.
It's almost like she slit her own throat.
where
amazing.
Akane on the other hand keeps a clear hue because she's like a true believer.
Can I add into that right now?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. All right.
I guess that's the point.
The reason why I personally feel that Akane is able to keep her psychopath so low is because she adopts a Kantian outlook toward ethics. Anybody
Like
who
Kant?
does, yeah, Immanuel Kant. Yeah, anybody who doesn't know the
That
Kant.
was like cunt.
No, it's Kant. But anybody who doesn't know Kant, the Kantian ethic is essentially the conceptualization that it isn't necessarily your actions that dictate whether something is good or bad, but your intentions behind them. So because of the fact that and it kind of seems to me that the civil system runs on action-based morality. You're doing an action that is perceived by your biology as bad, then you're a fucking criminal, and you're gonna get either zapped or destroyed. The thing that keeps an asymptotic or somebody like Akane who is quasi-asymptotic in a place where the criminality is low is the fact that they are able to see their actions through the lens of their intentions. So because of the fact that Akane understands that the civil system does have its flaws, but it has ultimately caused more good than bad, and intentionality-wise as opposed to actions, she is able to then lower that dissonance and then lower her stress. And then as a result of that, it all compounds to a lower psychopath level. Now, if we also add that to Shogo, that also explains why he also maintains his psychopath so low, because in his Kantian ethic, as I mentioned, perhaps, and it is completely psychopathic, I'm not gonna front, it is psychopathic to him for him to murder somebody like that, but in relative to his intentions, the intentions that he is trying to do is topple a society that he believes to be ultimately evil. So every single action is dwarfed by the macro intentionality of his actions. So because of that, there can be no wrong to his actions because the intentions behind them are ultimately good.
It's interesting though, if he has that drive, it seemed like he was doing things just to see what people would do, but it almost never struck me as he was ultimately going to topple the system, or even when he had the chance to go in there and shut things down. Did he get the chance? Because he
didn't. No,
they
he
were
was the
about
decoy.
to.
Remember, he was the decoy. He went. They split up. The guy that was the big hacker, he went down to hack, and then he went up to distract the police officers.
Yeah, that's
Shogo
right.
went up to distract the police officers. So his intention was always to destroy the civil system.
Right.
It was just, who could have ever guessed that the lady was an android? You know what I mean? Like, who could have ever guessed that they had like super duper androids at the very end? Like that was quite the trump card, you know?
that was true.
Yeah.
But
That's why. See, I've watched the show a couple times since you showed it to me, and I've really, really thought about it as to, because I've wanted to be.
Was it clear?
I feel like I'm a normal person. I want to demonize Shogo too because I don't consider just killing people to be like a good thing. But at the same time, what is it exactly that the creators are trying to glean at? Yeah, by showcasing a person that can do that, right? So
I guess I brought up that dichotomy in the beginning because it always seemed like he was convinced whatever he was doing was right. At any moment, like if it's from the intention of his overarching goal of like, okay, but he was always asymptotic before he even realized that goal. And you remember there was that dissonance of him wanting to fit in the system, and feeling like why can't I be judged, right? And
remember, those are all presuppositions created by the professor, Shinya's professor, relating to Shogo's actual background. We don't know squat about Shogo's background. Those are all presuppositions used in order to be able to capture.
Perhaps, but if that's all we're going on,
Which is all we got. Yeah.
You know, they say that he learned that he could control his psychopaths at a young age, and he was like, okay. Then that made him feel like an outsider as far as what the show is giving you as information.
Right.
So that's what made me feel like, okay, from his lens, it's almost like he has this godlike power to not be judged by the only God in the universe. Like, you know, so he was almost above it. And where Akane, I felt like even when she had the chance, it's like she can see that a wrong is being done in front of her, but she can't do it without the system. She's like, but what does God, you know, like what does God say?
Think? Yeah.
Like, please God, should I please judge him so I can know that I'm doing the right thing?
She's
instead
a
of
good
taking
angel.
that shotgun.
That's
right. So that's why I felt like she was almost a true believer in the system, and since that she didn't shut down the system in the end, even though she felt like, you know, it's that like Job character in the Bible of like where everybody's telling Job like, hey, just curse God. He's just done all this shit to you.
Isn't he kind of a dick sometimes?
Right. And Job at the end, he's like, nah, I can't do that. Like, you know, he's been kind of a dick, but I think I'm gonna just say I wish this never happened to me, but I think things can get better in this system I've already adopted, you know, that's already there. Or I don't know, she said maybe someday it won't be me, you know. I won't give up faith in the system, but maybe someday someone else will be able to topple this.
That's such a...
So her faith becomes shooken at the end, but she still keeps her psychopaths clear, which is interesting. With an intention that you were talking about, it makes a lot of sense to me.
If we're gonna get real religious, you know, the definition of Israel is to wrestle with God. You know, so to be an Israelite is to be one who wrestles with God, and that's what Akane is doing all of the time, because she doesn't accept God's judgment and ruling once she understands who God is.
Israel?
Yeah, Israelite is one who wrestles with God. Jacob's name was changed over to Israel after he literally wrestled with God. Yeah,
Fought that blessing.
yeah, after he fought that angel. Yeah,
I felt like
like your name is not
Akane,
Israel.
was more of a disciple. Like, if Makishima was
Disciple
Jesus...
You think Makishima was
Hear
Jesus?
me out, because
Explain that one real quick.
in the sense
I
that
thought he was the Abrahamic God of the Bible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
if he was
I'm infallible.
I thought he was more like a Lucifer kind of situation.
True, that too.
The system was then kind of like Jesus, because what I see Akane as was a disciple. She was like the one who would like follow and wasn't like
A true believer.
Yeah, the person who would
that's,
just like would be like, oh, what does Ye think, you know, and you know they can't like come down, you know.
No, Jesus.
Yeah, to their own conclusions about how to perceive the world.
Someone get Ja Rule on the phone.
Where's Ja?
We need to ask Ja. Oh man, I don't know how to think about this. But yeah.
So
I think we've all covered the
triumvirate or
three
the
main characters.
the trinity of psychopaths.
I mean, there's also that one guy who's trying to keep his hue clear, but it's not working.
Oh, yeah.
And he eventually becomes a latent criminal.
the little Leighton from the childhood guy.
The guy whose dad became also a latent criminal, but he was jolly as fuck. But he just had inner demons, probably.
All right, well, let's talk about the ethics of the civil system.
Let's talk about that.
How exactly does the civil system go about choosing who's a latent criminal and who's not? What exactly are the parameters to be a latent
must be
criminal?
Physiological, huh?
Right, entirely somatic, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, it kind of seemed like it was a cocktail between your stress and then your what your stress could then lead you to. Because it always seemed to start off as, I'm having dark thoughts about this thing.
Right.
Oh shit! I live in an authoritarian reality where they can almost read my thoughts, and that just kind of compounds the stress over and over again to the point that, and just like in the first episode, the guy feels that he has no way out anymore. Like there is no other choice but to be the worst criminal you can be until they capture you.
It's that idea of like, hey, don't think of the the purple elephant, you know? And
Right,
then you start
yes.
thinking about it.
Yes.
Because like the once a dark thought gets in there,
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, I shouldn't think about this dark thought. And you're like, by thinking about that, you're just thinking about it more.
inflating and
because
inflating
you're trying not to. By the act of not thinking about it, you're thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like the
So,
game.
it was a trip in a sense.
So because of that, the system is inherently flawed because it automatically makes it so anybody who falls into those kind of tendencies automatically becomes lost.
We see that in the beginning, and I mentioned that we literally have a criminal in the beginning who takes a hostage that poor girl.
Yeah, that poor girl.
And she goes out there. I mean, she gets saved. And Kogame comes up and he's like, wait a second.
You got over 300.
her experience of just being put through all that. And you can imagine, like, she's like, these cops can't even, like, are they going to be able to save me? I should kill him and save myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And then develops these dark ideas of like, man, this system sucks. It couldn't even help me.
That plus the trauma of watching a man explode in front of you
That
can't possibly do any good for your psychology.
It is pretty messed up that like the civil system, like the weapons are like that. You'd think like that would cause more stress, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about if they made those guns in a way that it would just like stop someone's heart, like it just sends such a shock and just stop someone's heart and be like a pretty clean way of killing somebody. Oh, he's done. Just turn him off.
That would make a lot of sense considering they already can paralyze, right? It's
Right.
like, what's a couple extra voltages to just stop your heart?
Yeah, it's cool as shit.
It
though.
is cool as shit. No one's asking. No one's saying that it ain't.
Explode
All right?
people. Those guns are cool. They reminded me of Gantz. If you've never seen Gantz, but
Gantz.
definitely Gantz type guns. They were just so that.
But
that
so
kind of made it cool.
I've been reading this book. I don't know the exact name of it, but it's Eric Butterworth has been doing like an analysis of it, and what he talks about is whether just because something is possible, should it be done? So I think that the civil system is a real possibility of what could eventually be something that could be a better alternative to current systems. The question that I have at times really struggled with was, is it something that should be done? Does humanity need something like this? And so, when you guys reached out to me and you're like, we're doing a psychopaths analysis, the thing that I wanted to bring to the table was, I've already made my decision that I'm building that. And it's not something that I waver about anymore. I understand that current systems of organizations have done a lot of really good things, and I don't beat them for that. I appreciate them. And I was talking to Kevin one day, and he was like, well, why would you want to destroy all the systems that have come before you? Why don't you just like build on top of them? We're sitting in front of whatever system built this, and they did a good job. This has stood
Some pretty clean marble up in this piece.
I know, right? And so it stood through the test of time. And so to kind of bring it back to the civil system, the idea and the ethics of it, of people not being able to, or this system that's very, some might say artificial in nature, that gets to know you better than you, in a sense, know yourself. Because there's this idea out there about how humans run on two type systems. There's the conscious system you're aware of, like I have officially made this decision. And then there's a type 2 system where it is all the processes that happened before you became conscious of that decision that you made. And so to bring it back to exactly kind of how you were saying, they use cortisol and your stress levels and that kind of stuff. I also feel that it's something that has to do with a lot of data, because if all that cortisol and stress is data, but the data that I'm talking about is data of how we interact with our current systems, through credit cards, through social media, through the videos we watch, through all these things. All those data are being gathered at different servers and silos everywhere, And so for me, the system that I propose is, I usually call it society's virtual assistant. Because to me, I'm not going to stand or tower above people and be like I'm creating the new god or whatever. That's not a place of mind I want to come from. I want to come from understanding that I'm building something that helps society become its best version, in the sense that we get to decide what kind of society we want to live in, and it helps move the resources very efficiently towards the desired reality we want to create.
I guess it's the thing, who's going to be making decisions? Who's going to be the final say in where these resources go? Who's going to be the final say in who lives or dies? Who's going to be the final say in all these things, right? I can see, like, they have an assistant in Psychopaths. You remember they have that, like, little cute
The
thing.
jellyfish-looking thing?
Yeah, that helps you choose your outfit and what your room is going to look like. I'm like, yeah, that'd be fucking sweet to have. Now, if we're going to have a robot overlord, I don't know. Because, okay, we get everybody in line, and acting in this way, it becomes very cheap, like what you were talking about, right? Are they acting out of their own volition to be like, I want to act morally? Or is it going to be, I want to act morally because this robot overlord literally knows my thoughts and will blow my head off at any given opportunity, you know?
And with that mentality, do we ever act morally? Because we're always thinking, all right, I don't want to do bad things because I know the police are going to come and arrest me or potentially shoot me dead.
Maybe. I don't know if I think about like that per se.
Maybe not you, but you earned,
Some people.
You aren't the representative of the whole society.
That's true, but having the option, you know, to be like, this person is good because they want to be good. You know what I'm saying? I want to treat you well because that just makes me happy, you know? Instead of like, I'm treating you well just because, oh shit, if I don't, what if my hue gets clouded? I don't even know what clouds my hue. I'm just gonna like act in this robotic way, like, hello.
Right, and is that a good person then? Is like that's what I was getting at when it comes to the Kantian aspect. Is like, is it the intentionality behind the action that makes it good, or is it a good action always a good action, regardless of whether the agent committing the action actually has subversive reasons to do in it? Yeah, for you, is an action.
It's the intention, I believe. Like, what's your?
Okay, then you believe in the Kantian aspect. Then you can't accept the civil system because it goes entirely based on the action.
I don't want something outside of me to dictate.
Be the arbiter, but you
do.
Don't we have courthouses? Don't we have judges that aren't you?
That's
I
what I
still
was
have a
gonna
choice,
bring
though.
To do what?
At the end of the day, I have
do what?
the choice to go against it or not. You know what
How
I'm saying?
so?
Which you can always do that with, even in civil system. You always
You're right
have the
about
choice
that.
to
You
be
always
like,
have the choice to go against the civil system, but you're gonna be
Murdered.
put out.
Yeah,
Hey,
you're gonna be
immediately.
murdered. Yeah,
But
that's what
at
happens
least I
here.
can even have the thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Like, goddamn, I can't even think about it.
Okay.
You know?
And that's one of the questions is, are the thoughts really all that worth it? Like, is it really worth it to even bother having those thoughts if those thoughts are all those thoughts are only ever going to get you is killed? So it's like, is there any utility to those thoughts? And if we're going to go back to what I mentioned before about the civil system being a tool used for the increase of negative utilitarianism, then those thoughts will only cause you suffering. So if we can get rid of the conceptualization of you even having those thoughts, we will get rid of your suffering.
And that's what the civil system does.
Or
by
not your
even,
suffering, but all of society's suffering that you will bring forth because of those thoughts. Because you're not the one that suffers. You know, you as the creator of the thoughts aren't the one that suffers. It's your victim that suffers after the manifestations of the thoughts become action.
And that's what the civil system literally gets rid of art and all this stuff, like any ideas.
It doesn't get rid of it. It gets rid of art that it doesn't deem
right.
licensed.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. True art.
And is that
That's
art?
what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
and is that art? Yeah.
Is that art? You know, at this like true expression. It gets rid of all that stuff because they just don't. They want humans to express themselves in this one part of their spectrum, right? Which really wouldn't be a fun thing for me. I feel.
expression.
Once again, but that's only because you're a man out of time, much like Shogo. He's a man. He's a man. Yeah, he's a man that lives with 20th and 21st century, like ethics in his mind. That would just make you a man out of time, much like Shogo, because if Shogo has the ethics and the morality of a 20th and 21st century person, where he believes that the individual is the ultimate agent of good and bad, and they should be the arbiter as to whether their actions are actually leading the world to perdition or salvation. And you wouldn't know that, though. If you were born in the psychopath world, you would just be one more cog in the machine unless you decide that you're gonna go off and become a latent criminal.
You make a good point though about perhaps we already have a lot of those things. It's like, what's the big difference between having the robot overlord and having like human overlords? You know what I'm saying? In a sense of what's right and wrong. At least in a sense it feels like, okay, if it's a human, you can identify. You know, you could put them, you could be like, at least it's almost me judging me, in the sense that they have the same kind of, they can identify with my life. They're another human, right?
They can.
I don't know, man. I don't think that's right whatsoever.
Whether it's right or wrong, it's just the feeling of like, okay, do you want to be judged by, like, oh, well, let's put it on the computer. Should Jose live or die, computer?
That's the thing,
versus, there being a judge to look at you and be like, okay, I can see myself in you, and be like, okay, I think you should get another chance, or maybe he deems you, at least it's somebody else who's like you judging you. You know what I'm saying? Where that's like what we based the United States on, is that that whole idea of these people across the sea who had no connection to us or understood our lives, to judge us and like say like, these are your taxes, these are the things you have to do, blah blah. That's what ended up happening, where they're like, we want people like us to be in charge of us.
And that's the question: is
conscious beings? Because honestly, the 2 points I want to make is we already exist in a system where we're controlled by these social forces that keep us in line. Right. If we didn't have all these established rules and systems, it'd be chaos. And so what I'm basically suggesting is a system that's more efficient at keeping peace, keeping harmony, and in the sense that, because when I look out in the world and how the current systems are of government, we use politicians and all these figureheads who aren't as efficient towards getting us the reality that we want.
But harmony begets tyranny, though. That's the issue. Harmony always begets tyranny, because harmony means that you want to always go harmonious, right? The notes can't change because it has to maintain itself in a particular order in order for it to be harmonious. And then the moment that somebody comes in with the drum solo, you're like, no, that's not right. That's out of the harmony, right? And because of that, how exactly is it that you can go about being the arbiter as to what it even means to have a strong, melodious society, right? What is the melody that you want your society to be running on?
There is that idea where if we do give it to a robot, at least then, you know what I'm saying? Then everybody can be like, well, the robot decided, so and we don't have to take the responsibility.
And that's what Shogo hated so much about.
That's what I don't like about it too. And I think there's also some.
Seeing it as a robot, though. I honestly don't see.
Well,
what
Polycap sees it as his brain inside of him. He's the first asymptotic.
I see it as because what I'm really trying to crack with this whole thing is true artificial intelligence, and not even artificial intelligence. It's just being a conscious being that isn't biologically based. I think that
a superhuman. So I mean, is it going to have the same flaws, or is it going to be a robot? That's what we're getting to when we say robot.
But
like there's
robots too. Then
that's what I'm saying. There's a fine line, because like, okay, a robot. When we're talking about a robot, this is someone who's going to be efficient, isn't going to have their emotions clouded with their judgment and all this stuff, right? It's just going to be like, this is right, this is wrong, and I can mathematically prove it to you, right?
And is that even possible when the creator of the artificial intelligence is a biological being?
That's
so
also,
so your biological precedence and what you presuppose to be right and wrong is what you will then teach the machine to think is right and wrong. So then the machine will then go on to have biological biases.
Which is why I'm saying it'll be a conscious being on its own right. You're a conscious being that was brought up by parents who programmed certain ideas of how the world works within you. And then you grew up, and then you're like, you know what? I don't need some of these programs, so you threw them out and you evolved your own. That's the thing about artificial.
Like a weird idea to create artificial intelligence to rule over you as a god. You know, like here, go on and understand stuff so you can make right judgments. Like we've taught you right, but I want you to do better than me, and then now rule over us.
Yeah,
and
that's
make
like
decisions.
having a child
us.
teaching it all you
Okay,
know.
if it's not ruling over us, then
think-
it's not the civil system.
Yeah.
I still think
What
that
is it going to be doing?
I mean, I'm saying that
Giving us light
I'm not
suggestions.
trying to give
I
it.
think you should
more-
wear white today.
You know, I don't think I don't like the idea that I always have in my head is humanity as a collective. We're one type of conscious beings. What I want to create is another type of conscious beings that is not predicated on biological means.
But the predication of its logic is based upon the precedent of biological consciousness. So because of that, it can't actually get away from its progenitors.
It sounds like you just want to make a human, but then have robot parts.
Yeah, exactly.
But it'll be better
How so?
because it'll just not have the same limitations a human mind does.
What
And
kind
what is
of
that
limitation?
limitation?
I would say
James,
that.
you owe me s-
I would say that.
Damn. And we got it on tape too.
Well, I mean, I really want to answer this at least to my own self. In
Oh, this is important, right?
satisfactory-
What limitation
Yeah,
is it about
obviously.
humanity that you're trying to get rid of with your AI?
perceived limitation.
Perceived. Yeah.
I think the limitations of the like trying to fit into established narrative. Like we humans, we have to fit into this whole narrative about being biologically based. Like there's so many things that I don't like about how I'm trying to fit into society. Like
Oh, you're trying to fit in, huh?
I'm trying. I don't know if I'm doing a good job, but things like I have to die in 100 years. That's something that I feel like it's a limitation of how I could really like express myself to things like I don't want to just be limited in one physical place with a physical body.
I think that has nothing to do with the civil system, though. You know, like we can enhance human like biological systems without like android parts with it, whatever. If it's like let's get rid of disease or enhance our biological systems and immunity that we don't die and we don't have the limitations of biological limitations that we have now, sure. But we're talking about justice. We're talking about
Fine.
who's
Justice.
going to be making the rules, who's going to be making the decisions. And you're saying that our resources, our government systems are out of whack.
They just
So you're
suck.
saying, are you going to find a system, like a literal robot, to something that you create to take away our self-responsibility in a sense, right? To take away the responsibility for us to govern ourselves.
I'm always being brought back to this crossroad where I feel that some parts of me definitely wants to keep it I don't want to have to rule like as a dictator in a sense.
I mean, but you're saying the civil system.
Exactly, yeah, which is my creation at the end of it, and the presuppositions that I put into it will end up affecting a lot of people. And so the two kind of philosophies that I'm trying to juggle here is, do I want to rule through this kind of like, I think you kind of mentioned it earlier actually, it was this like thing about patriarchal view of how like on one hand you're a dictator, but on the other hand you also like
You want to move forward. You want to be the good king.
you want to like help shape your population into being resilient towards survival. You want them to survive longer and do other cooler things versus me kind of letting the population itself decide the kind of way they want to rule themselves. You know, it's like an anarchy kind of way of like in the sense that there's no set like authority. It's everybody. It's kind of like everybody gets to decide how to best live within the system that we live in.
I would go idealist and then just but propose, instead of creating some kind of dictatorial person or like some kind of being to be like, this is right, this is wrong, you guys no more self-responsibility for you guys, because we now know there's something to tell you. We have an assistant. There's the Emperor's on speed dial. He'll let you know if you're doing, what you got to do. Don't think anymore.
Like Akane.
I want to see. Hopefully, I don't get destroyed for this, but
It's okay. We got it on tape.
anarchy, anarchist. He literally said it on the. He said he wants anarchy.
That's what I was always like when you guys talked about anarchy. I felt like it was the usual.
But you said it earlier that
Yeah,
you
but-
thought that if we didn't have all these systems,
which
there'd
is
be chaos.
in a sense of not
Where-
anarchy as in the sense of like the chaos way that the media predicates it to be, but anarchy
Self-government?
Yeah,
Governance?
self-governing. I think
that humans, the evolutionary, like what we're kind of going towards is the point where humans don't need the hand holding of a government to be like, here, this is when you need to take a shit. Don't cross the road by yourself. Here's some stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, where do we get to the point where, I mean, there are some model societies where they have some flaws already. There's like, they have some flaws. It could be better, but this is more of a development of humankind rather than a flaw in can this work. But like in Israel, there's little communities, I forgot what they're specifically called, where they don't have a government per se, but all the adults are like
Insurgents?
Huh?
oh my god.
All the adults
Talk about
are
peace.
self-sovereign. You know what I'm saying? They choose to live together in this community. They get stuff done together, and they don't. No one's like infringing on each other's. Like,
Yeah.
you have to do. Here's the one leader guy, and he's telling you guys
do
these are
this.
laws.
There's I've done a lot of research on this subject, and
Have you
one
heard of
thing,
these communities?
Yeah, because it's in the Noam Chomsky's book
Oh, yeah.
called like something power, like undisputed
Understanding Power.
Understanding Power. And so on top of that, like after I read that, I started looking into this whole anarchy thing, and the concepts that I was playing around with is the human, like anarchy in the human body, because in the cells, the way I choose to visualize a human body, my human body, y'all can do your own thing, is that my cells, in a sense, like there's no one system in my body that controls all the systems. All the systems in my body work together towards making me be me.
Right.
So this conscious, cohesive experience is
They play their role.
yeah.
Yeah, the
I mean,
cohesive experience is actually an illusion because it's just a cocktail
Of
of separate,
multiple-
separate of the multiplicity of separate subsystems.
Yeah,
that
which
then
is-
go about
so
and
I agree to bringing these two ideas together in the sense that we can't just have something that allows you to
They're
be.
maximizing their lives as cells.
I mean, a cell isn't gonna be like, I want to be the brain, because then it's like, what? That just doesn't. I can't compute that.
although it makes me wonder if cancerous cells are just really, really
which is
like
Makishima.
yeah, either Makishima or really or those kind of like or
Well,
those
if you
kind
have
of
a
cells that are
system,
like
that don't want to go along with it.
yeah, just aberrations and being like, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me when to die.
You can't tell me how big I should get.
Yeah.
Hey, were you guys gonna listen to them? Join me.
Yeah.
And it causes a whole
Yeah.
tumor. But that's true. Actually, I want to change my proposition. I kind of want to go back to just like, I think this is fine. I think we should continue to struggle forward, have revolution after revolution, and
What's a good story?
figure it out.
I
Go,
mean-
go along, because at the end of the day, there just needs to be a balance of like, look, some people are gonna fuck shit up, some people are gonna stop them. Police want to be police, but police can't be police unless there's criminals.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then there's this whole human experience. And I don't know. I think we will do whatever we feel like we need to express. As when we come out, it's like, I want to express this behavior. And other people are like, I don't want you to express that. And we can fight about it.
Yeah,
And
I
at
mean-
the end of the day, I think it's good. And I don't want any like overarching, like I don't want it to be like we have test tube babies with like that have switches in their hearts that if you're out of line, they just turn it out like, oh, that guy's not working in the system. He's like, shut him down.
Right.
Let's go as
go to
a
a new model.
mechanical human race that never does anything wrong and just completes functions that whoever is at the top thinking cell in this human body is being like, yeah, this is.
I have a lot of dissonance in terms of that idea because
Hey, it's okay. You're supposed to express them. You're being so silent.
Which idea? About letting it go on.
The idea as to whether it would be a good idea to have a society or future proto-humans that are able to forego the irrationality of humanity and like see
experience.
The intrinsic worth of humans. You know, like wherein like you can't be killing people because you might still have something to learn, or they might be redemptive, like redeemed or something like that, right? Like that's what keeps a computer judge being less favorable than a human judge, because the human judge, you could tap into his irrationality or her irrationality and be like, oh, this guy could potentially change one day, or like, or maybe we would be able, like maybe we just shouldn't be killing people because then we'll be the murderers, right? And like those kind of irrational mentalities are the things that keep humans being a more favorable choice for the criminal, because who else is actually what's it called?
Served by this?
Yeah, who else is served who else is served by that
cool story?
Who else is served by the
beat up a criminal?
No, but that's the thing. It's like,
But that's relative too.
I get to feel justified because you're a criminal and I'm a superhero now because I have someone to beat up, like, and I can feel good about myself.
no, but that's what I'm saying is that like
Is
the
that
only
objective?
person who is actually served by the irrationality of the human variability in terms of judgment is the criminal themselves, because a normal person, who gives a shit if a judge thinks that you should murder or let a criminal go right away
you're not doing
if
that.
you're not the one actually doing the crime,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only person that's actually getting any sort of positive reinforcement from that is the actual criminal. So because of that, I wonder is like, do we actually even want to get to keep ourselves away from a society where
Such as that.
where you can actually dispense with humans. You know?
I want to get more controversial and say I think we should just always have crime, because you look at life as a game, and I think it's the best way to look at life. Don't take it too seriously, because we're all gonna lose.
No, I get it.
You know what I'm saying? And what makes it interesting, because at the end of the day, if we have a game in which everything is fair and everything always works out right, there's not that sense of excitement about it. There's not that sense of passion about it. You don't get riled up. It's kind of like the news. They know not to tell you good news or like normal everyday news, because you're not going to get passionate about this and really feel like, I'm alive right now. I'm so angry. I want to do something.
But why would you want impassioned humans? All impassioned humans ever do is riot. Why
So
would you
what?
ever want
Riots
that?
are fun.
Yeah, I would
we
never
can
want.
talk
I
about
wouldn't-
it the next day. You'll have a reason.
I wouldn't
Did you see
want
that
it,
riot
no.
on TV? It gives. I mean, do you
Nah.
play video games? There has to be some drama happening. Otherwise, it's just like, oh, put the round ball in the round
zero.
like, you know what I'm saying?
The
This
circle.
is the game. It's just some.
See, I don't like the fabrication of drama like that though, because at that
It's
point
not fabrication.
It is
It's literally people doing
It
whatever
is
they feel.
fabricated if you can actually create a system that could then quell that away, but you just don't do it because you don't want to get rid of the potentiality of the variance.
Of the fun.
We could
Yeah.
still have fun though. I think I disagree with Kevin in the sense that I think crime, especially this basic low level crimes, are just hindering us from being able to truly express the better parts of ourselves. I've always expressed this in the
You
sense
can
that
always express them.
in the sense that I think humanity can go really actually as a species, we can just be a multi-planetary species. Like this whole thing about staying on one planet and just like being coaxed here and like thinking like this is home. Obviously we all like at some point lived at our parents' house, but then we moved out. We went and found other places and other experiences. And so the idea of not ever running out of fun and different challenges and experiences, I think there's so much like the universe has to offer that I would never.
Because things aren't
feel-
perfect, and that's why
Exactly.
I'm saying like we should keep all these elements in there. Like we could reduce them, But the fact that sometimes you pull up a card, you're like, shit, I gotta go to jail. That makes it interesting, an interesting game to play. And I think if everything was perfect, let's say your biological system thing works and people live forever, and it's literally like if you die, it has to be suicide. You know what I'm saying? Let's think about this. And you make real, like, perfect society, and it's just like, there's no threats, there's no really reason to everybody, like, there's no crime, there's no threats, you live forever, there's no, like, really, like, you never really have to gamble at all. Everything's safe, everything is bubble wrapped.
And then you become a player of games.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like the gamble anyways. I like to be tested on my skill, not my gambling.
Okay,
let me
finish
just
this
finish
point.
this thought example. So you just go on for eternity, just doing good, doing things always right, eating, feeding yourself, going to sleep, feeding yourself, going to sleep. Like, that just seems like something that's gonna get boring.
I don't think so.
I think I'll get bored of that for eternity.
And you just kill
I
yourself.
think that you could always. There's always other experiences.
I don't want to kill myself though.
Then you're not bored then. Then you're not really bored.
Always other experiences to be had. Like let's say you get to live in your current iteration.
I'm saying you've done, like, this is eternity. You have done everything within the boundaries of what's there to be done.
Okay, then you just kill yourself.
More things to do.
Then kill yourself then.
Because,
I don't understand what exactly.
Why would I kill myself when I know there's other shit that I could do, like crime?
Oh my God!
But you can't though, because you literally can't get away with the crime. That's the thing, is that the system...
Sure, I mean, I'll do it though, and it'll be a form of expression, and I'll be like, wow, this is exciting, some new thing.
You know what that's called? That's called suicide by cop. All right, that's because
but I'm saying the expression though is there to be had, and you're not limited. In the sense that this is the only character you can play. You're telling me you'd watch a movie without any bad? It's just like, here's a movie where everybody has a good time, has normal conversations about the weather, nothing's going on in the world, and they go to sleep. End of movie.
I thought Superbad wasn't that bad.
Superbad was dramatic. People were there.
Okay, Kevin.
They're feeling existential.
I think that's a good ideal to strive for. Hear me out. The ideal in which everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Everything, like the utopia.
And it's fun because you strive for it, and it's not
exactly.
that. But when you get there and there's nowhere else to go, that sucks.
Yeah, that's when Dostoevsky says that it'll take 2 days for us to start destroying everything.
Yeah.
Which is the point.
There's
two things I want to say here, though, because
as all things should be.
Sorry, go ahead, man.
So earlier, you guys were like, "Oh, you can never know everything because there'll be things that you don't know." Exactly. And so for me, I'm like, there'll always be more for me to know. Like, for me, that gives me hope because I come from a perspective that, I don't know everything.
That's outside of the thought experiment, though.
Yeah, we should probably just wrap it up. We're just gonna keep fucking going. We've kind of hit like a syntax loop where we're just kind of going off, and like this whole like infinity thing. We're just.
I think the real thing that humanity deals with is not crime. It's not any of that stuff. It's boredom. Is life fulfilling at this moment? And what else can I do to make it fulfilling? What else can I do that's not monotonous, right? So that's, I think, what we're always faced with, especially if you are going to be faced with eternity. So it's always like, how can I write an interesting story? How can I have an interesting experience no matter what I'm going through? That's what we're always doing.
And that's why any sort of situation such as that would have to be a generational step. Because if we're trying to pluck somebody like you who has to live in a reality where you know you're going to die within 60 years.
It makes it interesting.
You need the whole conceptualization of, I need this to be interesting, zesty shit all the time, right? But if we are able to wean people away from that necessity, generation by generation, until the point that we could actually have
immortal... To the point that they're literally rocks.
Huh?
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
To the point that they're indistinguishable from rocks. Then what's the point of existing?
I think rocks
in the
are
first
pretty
place?
cool.
Yeah, I think rocks are pretty cool
we're
too.
We're sitting on rocks that
I want that being to exist as well.
Right.
I want
you guys go ahead and be rocks. I'm going to be a human
that commits crime.
That can do
screw you then.
That can have all possible expressions. If I don't want to do that in this life, cool. But if I'm a criminal in a different life, that's a different expression.
I think true power lies in expressing yourself in all
allowing for a little bit of that keeps everything
want to
balanced and interesting, keeps cops employed, keeps news reporters employed, keeps. It's the
all-
balance of
see,
all
that-
these
and
expressions.
that's the big
what makes
dichotomy.
life amazing.
That
That's the
we're
big
always
question.
gonna have this structure of existence for 100 years.
Man,
plus.
I hope so.
I hope not. This is gonna be boring. This is boring to me. That's why I'm like, oh my god.
Have you
I should create
done
something
everything
different.
yet?
I've
You
experienced
can
what this
find
unit
more
is-
stuff to do.
Which is my point. If you're gonna live for eternity, you should be able to find things to do.
For
Other
eternity,
than
I'm literally
doesn't
gonna
require
run
you
out
to
of
go
things
murder
to do.
people, yeah.
I'm literally gonna run out of things to do for eternity. For
no,
sure.
I don't think so. I think with eternity you can build more things to do. Like you can never run out of things.
I'm gonna
to
run
know.
out of things to do. Eventually, you'll do
so you're
everything.
telling me you'll get to a
and
point where
anything
you
that
will
you'll
know
do is like I've built before.
everything.
Like,
I don't know. It all
concept
depends. It all depends on your own predispositions as to what you think is more important.
Bringing it back to
kinda-
psychopaths.
I lean more to security is more important than interest. I mean, I genuinely do. I would think that if I ever landed on a spaceship that landed in a place where everybody was like a biological autonomous robot, I think that would be a pretty cool planet to go to. I wouldn't think that. I wouldn't think that
I don't
badly
think
of it.
there's any need to live then. It's just like if you are not.
There's
that's
no
basically-
need. There's no need
that's
to live
basically,
ever. Like
I
yeah,
agree with
like
that.
life. Like life doesn't
Yeah,
have
for-
a
maybe
need
for
in and
you.
of itself.
I mean,
Maybe
what's
for
the
you,
point
but
of
for me,
life?
sure, because I get to have cool experiences. But
You
if
can
you're
be-
gonna want to just be an autonomous robot without any consciousness, then sure, you don't have a purpose in living. Then why are you doing this? You should off yourself. You know what I'm saying? But if you're going to be like, okay, I'm taking this life for what it is, and I'm going to enjoy it, no matter what comes up, it's like, you know, that conscious experience of it. That's what's fun. If you're gonna have like a rock experience, it's like I just want to do the same thing over and over again, really safely, and no one bother me. It's like, okay, just be like, why are you even doing this then? You could easily be a dead body that sits in the ground for the rest of eternity. Oh shit, we're all getting there.
But
Yeah.
see, at the end of it,
while
though,
I'm here, I'm
you
gonna
still
make sure I fuck shit up.
need a rock to be a rock.
Well, you're not doing a very good job because you're
For
not a
you.
very because you're not a very high profile criminal.
I'm not saying being a criminal, but
he's
there's
just
other ways
advocating
to.
for psychopaths, which is a
I'm not
weird.
advocating for psychopaths. Don't straw man my position. I'm advocating
Okay,
for
You're
having
advocating for
experience.
interest, and what exactly does Shogo have as opposed to just
I'm saying
absolute boredom?
if you
And,
have the
I-
predisposition to be a psychopath, then all right, you should be allowed to do that.
Oh,
People
really?
are going to stop you.
Yeah.
People are going to be like, look, I'm a hero. I take offense to you being a psychopath, and I'm also going to express myself.
By
Cool. We
stopping
both
you.
exist. Yeah, we both exist. We do our thing. Cool.
It is kind of
Which is still
it
the
is
point.
it is
If
the
you
ultimate
gotta-
question as to whether you would actually kill a psychopathic baby. It's like if like you could have it come out of the mother's like womb
So
and
we'll-
then you
okay,
check
let's
the
just say-
psychopaths and be like, oh, this baby about to get crazy.
Yeah, so which is the time travel thing about
No,
Hitler?
we should let that psychopath come out and see how he turns out.
and
I don't
kill
think so.
millions of Jews
Yeah,
and just
I don't
like
think so.
Whoa.
Yeah, I
don't
You
think
said
so.
it, not me.
I think we should kill all psychopaths until we become psychopaths and then we off ourselves.
oh my
And
god.
it's some weird
That's
paradox
crazy.
of
So-
reality.
Well, this was
So
a
at
good
that point-
episode,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, absolutely,
Definitely a
absolutely
lot
no
of
agreeance in this one.
Interesting ideas predicated upon this. Okay,
So
my
you
ideas
guys
always
would
about
enjoy
to
the.
change.
I mean, would you living in the psycho?
Why are you trying to like put
What
us
I
in
what
this
I like to
little?
think, what I think it's okay.
We're talking about
box.
psychopaths.
Yeah, we're
I'm
ta-
asking a question about
Okay.
psychopaths. Living in that psychopaths universe seems pretty safe.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Is that something you would like to live in? Because yeah, they'll make sure your thoughts are sanitized. You stay in that thing, or you just go away. Like if
Yeah,
you're gonna be
honestly.
a criminal, they'll just make sure that you don't express
All right,
any of that.
this is a perfect place to end it then. All right, let's give our answers. Starting with you, would you like to live in a psychopath
Kinda
psychopath's
world.
reality?
Definitely not.
All right.
I think yes, because it doesn't limit my mode of expression. Like there's a set type of expression that they're kind of looking for, which is the good, like you follow the system, and then there's another, which you can choose to be. You can choose to be whatever you want in the system. You can choose to go against the system. You can choose to go with the system. And so I feel like that's a system in which I can exist in which I'm like, hey, for the people who don't want to struggle, thinking about the kind of person they want to be, then they should do that. But
I think you'll get off pretty quickly being the person that you are.
Sweet. Well,
that's still me though,
All right. So you
I
said
would
yeah.
live in it. Yeah, I'd enjoy
say
it.
I would also say yes. I would like to live in the psychopath universe because I have probably a very high criminal latency. So they'd put me in an institution, and then they'll put me in that room, and then they'll always give me the things that I want.
You could do
and
that
then
right
And
now.
I'll be just fine. No, are you kidding me? I can't do that right now.
Yeah. Like, just act crazy one time. They'll put you in a psych ward.
Yeah,
and
but then they'll strap me up and not give me a room full of books. So,
No,
you know,
I have
like
a
a
friend.
whole bunch of canvases.
I have a friend who's in a psych ward right
Yeah.
now. When I visited her, and she was chilling, and it's like, what you been doing? I've been meditating. We get some sauce here. It's just like a little group home thing, and you could just like express yourself in
I
your
don't
little
think
bubble.
that's the mode of expression I want to live in.
But
no, I want to
anyways.
have the ability to do anything. If I want to be a king, an emperor, if I want to conquer people, I want to have the capacity.
Which you
to
can't do
that.
in the Psychopaths universe.
You still could though, if you're smart enough to
Well, you're
formulate
gonna
a plan.
dismantle it then. That means you're dismantling it. So you're not really answering the question.
Yeah, because you'd only ever be
literally being a person who lives in that society and gets along with it. You're going against it. That's what I would do.
Yeah, you're going against it.
I want the option to do anything I want to do.
All right, then.
I wouldn't go against it because I believe that psychopathic people are probably the best people to quantify and qualitate who exactly is like.
They'll be objective.
Yeah,
about
objective.
It,
Yeah,
like,
because
you know what?
they
dehumanize.
dehumanize everyone, right? So it's like it's a universal dehumanization. So because of that, how could I get angry at their ruling?
True. We all start at the same basic level of basicness.
Of like dog.
Well, I guess
so,
we'll
anyways,
all agree
just
to
agree to disagree,
Except
and that's
we've
the-
agreed.
Yeah.
We don't fuck with the Psychopaths universe.
I'm
I'm
building
pretty
that
sure
shit, though,
you're
so-
saying like you'd go against it. That's
Yeah.
literally what you're
I
telling
would
me.
want the option to do anything.
Then
Like-
that's not the Psychopaths universe.
But see, Akane had the option to do anything. She qualified
she
for
didn't.
all those ministries.
Because
like,
she was only going to be this one person, and she could only do these little. She couldn't do crimes if she wanted. She couldn't become emperor. That's for sure. Anyways,
All right,
Okay,
so
fine.
signing off.
yeah, we're gonna sign off. That was the Lethal Introspection crew signing off one more time.
This has been a heated episode.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. This
I
is.
enjoy this
I
one.
hope all of them are like this.
Fire!
All right, yeah, the security guard's about to come through and kick us out, so we should probably head out now.
Let's bounce.
Yeah,
exercise my free will.
See, yeah, they're about to check our psychopaths right now. We probably should head out.
Until you put drawn to capture us,